Alright then, another video just to show you how I negotiate the deals that I make. The player in question is Cesar Assia, who is a Colombian national, valued at around 4.5 million. He's bagged 16 goals and 22 appearances for me, which is quite impressive. The guy's a winger dash attacking midfielder, which explains why he scores a shitload. Um, he has played for a number of smaller Colombian sides before I picked him up at Independiente Santa Fe. He has not yet been capped for the national team, which is probably why his value is relatively low. Now let's look at the offer the Saints have made for this lad. They're bidding 3 million up front and some installments deals, taking the total deal to around 5 million. Now, one of the things I always do is I always ask for their market value up front. Clubs don't always accept these terms, but most of the time they will agree. In this case, it's Southampton, an English side. They will have money to burn, so 1.5 million extra shouldn't really hurt them all that much. I'm actually quite happy with the installment deals, but it can't hurt to ask for more. I'm always wary about these league appearances fees because they usually don't go through. Even the AI is smart enough to sell a player after a season if it means skipping out on a huge future fee. I'm not going to ask for any additional fees because most of them are probably not worth the hassle. In the additional clauses, one I always remove is the percentage of profit from the next sale, because if they don't sell him on or sell him on cheaper than they signed them for, you're not getting anything at all. I always ask for 40% of their next sale, which is something the AI usually accepts. The total deal here is 7 million, which is less than double of what he is worth, but as we have seen in previous videos, his value will go up and will go up significantly when he moves to England. So 7 million is probably still a whole lot cheaper than what his actual value will be when he moves to Southampton. When we renegotiate, we see the Saints are not really willing to play ball here, but we are. So we're going to skip out on the installment deals, but we are asking for market value up front. And they are driving up the prices somewhat. I'm still asking for market value up front. We are now getting 50% of his next future deal. And there you go. Southampton have accepted it, and we're selling a player for, well, about 150% of his actual value. Assia has to sign for Southampton, has to agree terms for Southampton for this deal to go through, but that really shouldn't be too much of a problem. Now, another nifty little trick, since we've already accepted a deal for Southampton and Cesar Assia is already on his way to the exit, we can see Newcastle is interested as well. What we're going to do is we're going to offer him out to clubs, and we're asking for 7.5 million. Transfer listing him will also ensure that he actually signs for Southampton, thus brings in the money, and it might bring in additional suitors for Cesar Assia. Now, our little ploy to drive interest up for Assia has somewhat backfired. That's not really an issue because we already have a decent offer in from Southampton. I was hoping to attract attention from Newcastle United as well, who haven't made a bid. Uh, we can see if Hoffenheim are willing to play ball. I somehow doubt that they're willing to almost double their offer, but hey, we're not selling him for any less than we asked from the Saints. We're asking for 7.5 million up front, 40% of the next deal. Hoffenheim are countering with 4.3 million and 300k in future installments. We're still asking for 40% and 7.5 million. Hoffenheim are bringing it back to 4.8 and 5.5 million. Again, we're asking for 7.5 million, which is a fair price. We're asking for the 40% as well. And Hoffenheim look to be playing ball now. We're getting around the 6 million mark now. We're still asking, well, it's just the same steps repeated over and over. I'm adding the clauses I want. They're coming up. Their final offer is too low for us to agree with, so we are rejecting it. But it does show you how you can negotiate with the AI until they hit a price mark you deem fair and acceptable. Little update on the Assia deal. There's now a newspaper article out which says they're likely to land Assia. For me, that's a good reason to once again offer him out, this time at a 7 million price range, just to see what happens there. It might garner some additional interest, which makes it a hell of a lot easier to attract interest from other clubs. And right now we can see that Cesar Assia has been granted a conditional British work permit. He is moving to Southampton, he's moving to the Saints. We can see that his actual market value is still around 4.6 million. We're selling him for 5.75 with the off chance that we will get an extra million, and we get 50% of his next deal. We say goodbye to Cesar Assia. We've shown patience. We've tried to drive up the price by offering him out to other clubs when interest garnered. And we hope that this is sufficient to win, well, to gain us some extra money. Now that the actual deal is going through, I was hoping to show you the spike in value for Cesar Assia, but when you're nearly 30 seasons into the game, updating takes a bit of time, unfortunately. So we're still waiting. Tomorrow is a friendly against FC Sion. Two players are buggering off to the Hungarian League, oddly enough, and the AFC Asian Cup is on their way, where we will be playing Mongolia. Yeah, the pinnacle world football has arrived, eh? As for negotiating deals, some pointers that you may or may not find useful. I've already briefly touched upon them, but try and get a future percentage deal in there. Not for the profit they turn on the transfer, but for the entire fee. You're much more likely to get any money that way. Another great idea is when you do have a certain value set for a player, don't go too far below that, and certainly never sell a player for less than market value unless you really want to get rid of him. And walk away if the deal or the conditions for the deal are just not right. Right here we can see that Assia is gone. He costed the Saints 5.75 million. He's now worth 33 million, so those cheapskates got a bargain deal here. The question is, will he ever succeed? And it looks like he's even made his debut as a starter for Southampton in the same day as completing the transfer. But yeah, he's off. He is off. And that concludes another prime example of the way I do business, the way I conduct my business, the way I negotiate my deals.